So Rambam says in Perek Shishi of Hilchos Chametz and Matzah, mitzvahs essay min Torah is a positive commandment from the Torah. Echol matzah b'leil chamisha asar, to eat matzah on the 15th of Nisan. So it means after the 14th day, the eve, when it comes to the 15th on the Jewish calendar, you have a mitzvah to eat matzah. Unfortunately, because we're bereft of the Beis Hamikdash, it's the only mitzvah essay that we have today for relation to really Pesach outside of the V'yigarat Levincha. So the only thing that has to do with, let's say, with related to food, related to eating on Pesach is matzah. The other mitzvahs are not midaraisa. So the mitzvah of V'yigarat Levincha is a mitzvah essay of the Seder, Sipur Yisir Mitzrayim, and the mitzvah of Achilas Matzah are both Midoraisa. You have several, what? What's that? To feel Cheres, to show Cheres, and feel show Cheres. There's no mitzvah Doraisa, it's part and parcel of the Sipur Yisir Mitzrayim, of the Zman Cheresenu, yeah. But you have Loisases, you have not galore, but you have quite a few Loisases. But as far as essay, eating matzah, leil chamisha asar, shneimar, how do we know that? It says, be'erev toichlu matzos. In the evening, you shall eat matzahs. That's how we know that you have a mitzvah to eat matzahs. B'chol makom v'chol zman. This mitzvah applies universally, applies in all geographical areas, it applies all times, for as long as there's a Jewish people around, Baruch Hashem, the mitzvah applies. And this achila is not related at all to the mitzvah of Karim Pesach, because even though today we don't have a Karim Pesach, we still have a mitzvah. Unfortunately, we don't have a Karim Pesach. We still have a mitzvah of eating matzah. It's its own mitzvah. And the mitzvah is all night. To eat matzah, the mitzvah is all night. Av bashar regel, the rest of the yontif, achilas matzah rishus. The rest of the yontif, the mitzvah of matzah is a rishus. It's voluntary. You do not have to eat matzah the rest of Pesach. You don't have to. If you choose, you could eat fruits and nuts. You could eat vegetables. You don't have to eat matzah. However, according to the Gra, the Vilna Gaon holds that you do get a mitzvah of eating matzah anytime. Throughout Pesach, you get the mitzvah of eating matzah. You do get the mitzvah of eating matzah anytime. We only make a bracha on the night of. We don't make a bracha each time. But according to the Gra, there is a mitzvah throughout. Now, what's that? Without matzah, right. So it's a little tricky. And it is, the shal is, do you have to have lechem mishnah? Do you have to have lechem for every meal of a yontif, suda? Right? Most Rishonim hold, you have to have bread in order to be yotze to suda. Others say no, you don't have to have bread. So you can be yotze to the simcha of the yontif through basar and yayin, and you don't have to be kaveya the suda on bread necessarily. It's interesting because there are those that are gluten-free, that have to have a certain diet, gluten-free diet. And they can't eat wheat.
You don't have to have wine either, right? Can't you make kiddush on kala?
What's that?
Can you make kiddush on kala?
You mean matzah here in this case?
Yeah.
But he's asking that if we hold that that you don't have a mitzvah that you have to eat on yontif matzah, right? But how do you fulfill your obligation of having a meal on yontif? What? On yontif. Remember yontif. It's a good point. It's a good order. Yeah. It's a very good order. Yeah. What else happened? Very good, because we learn out from the Mishnah in Sukkah tells us that there are 14 meals that are required. There's twice daily. You have the evening, every evening, and every morning, every afternoon, you have to have another meal. So if 7 days, Midaraisa, the Yontif is 7 days, that's 7 times 2, 14 meals, right? Pesach would be the same thing, right? At 7 days of Pesach, Midaraisa, so we're required to have 14 meals. But what do those meals have to be comprised of? Do you have to have matzah? So if you could somehow obviate the need for matzah, there's no mitzvah per se to eat the matzah. Mitzvah, if eating the matzah, according to the Rambam, according to many Rishonim, is dafka the night of Pesach. Or today we have Yom Tov, we have also Chiyuv to eat it the second day as well. So the what? Right. So gluten free is interesting, Shiloh, because there are Rishonim that say that many times Shibboleh Shul, as Shibboleh Shul literally means, it has nothing to do with grains. It has to do with the description of the anatomy of the grain. And because Shul is a fox, Shibboleh basically means like the tail of a fox. And it's supposed to be describing the anatomy. So basically, there are species and subspecies of grains. And there are what we'd call like quote unquote taxonomical terms, or more like botanical terms for the different grains, but there are different groupings. So you have the wheat grouping, and then you have the barley grouping, and so it would be like the chita and kosemes versus the other three. But shalas is oat actually part is oat shibboleh shul. The word Rishon said it's not, that oat has no connection. It's not related at all to barley, and it doesn't actually, physical description would not match. It wouldn't be compatible with that type of description. And according to the Rishonim, you would not be yotzei, you wouldn't fulfill your obligation of matzah by eating oat matzah. Be a big problem. So, if you want it, now most Rishonim don't agree with that. Rosh Shlomo Zalman was very strict about it. Rosh Shlomo Zalman said we have a Masorah, we have a tradition, and tradition overrides any type of, botanical or horticultural, type of discovery or research, because we have a very, very strong tradition that it is synonymous. That's what it is. It matches. It's compatible. That the Shibboleh Shul is oats. No, oat is one of the 5 grains. It'd be a big shalah then. What bracha do you make on if you make it into a cake or something? What bracha would you make on it? Because you only make mzonos on the 5 grains. The only exception to that is oirez. Oirez is loosely translated as rice. Right? Doichen is, let's say, millet, but oirez is rice. I mean, there is a sheet I think the Magen Avraham holds. I think it's Magen Avraham that holds that rice. You don't make a mzonos. You only make a hadama. But there's a famous Chayei Adam on this. But Lamaisa, we make a mzonos on the only grain that we make a mzonos on outside the 5 grains, because it's subject to error and confusion, because it's such a staple, and which traditionally it was, grouped together and mixed together. And therefore, we do make a mezonus on rice, but we make the after bracha is not a ala michya, is a bar nefashos, right?
They have nowadays, they have like coconut flour, almond flour, rice flour. You make matzah from like coconut flour.
Right. So the only grains that you're allowed to make matzah from are grains that could oscillate chimutz, that would ferment, and that would become chametz. None of these grains would become chametz. It's very fascinating, because Yerushalmi, fascinating.
Coconut flour can be kosher Pesach.
The what?
Coconut flour can be kosher Pesach.
Yes.
And they can make cookies and pita bread and salad.
Rice
Almond
cannot
flour
be-
as well.
Rice cannot become chametz.
As long as nobody says it's kidneys.
Right?
But do you know anybody that says that almond flour is kidneys? I mean, we use filberts all the time, and different types of nuts. What? Peanuts are not real nuts. Peanuts are legumes, and peanuts are kidneys. But as far as rice is concerned, what? You say what? Right. Okay. I'm saying, but most oils it may be different. Peanut oil, because there's a big shaila machlokes in the Eretz Yisrael, the Paiskim, whether the gezerah applied for the oil as well. Was it transferable to the oil as well, or that once it changes, that there's like a metamorphosis, it transforms, then it's no longer that. It's no longer under the rubric of being kidneys any longer. That's a machlokes, with the oils. But as far as rice has the din for Ashkenazim and for Eastern European countries of being prohibited and forbidden on Pesach. It's a Rabbanon, it's a Gzeira, because of kidneys, and because it's so similar to the grains.
It can't become rice.
It can never be. So that's the question, because there is a Yerushalmi. What are Yerushalmi? Yerushalmi percent machlokes in the Chachamim, and another Tana, if I'm not mistaken. about whether Oires is Asli de Chimutz, whether Oires could become Chametz. I think it's Oires. I don't think it's Deichen. I think the Gemara show me this about Oires. And the Gemara says, what kind of question is this? This is Mitzius. We're dealing with a physical reality. We're dealing with something that is empirical, something that could be proven or disproven, something that's subject to testing. Go ahead and test it and see for yourself. So the Gemara says they did test it. And the subject of their machloikis, the subject of their dispute, was post the testing. One finding, one report was that it did turn into chametz, and the other report was that it did not turn into chametz. How's that possible? How's it possible? Maybe there were different strains. Maybe there were different breeds. Maybe there was a little confusion. But you see that they didn't just shoot from the hip. They didn't shoot from the hip. Everything was subject to, either they had a Messiah, direct Messiah, of Halacha Moshe Messinai, or, that means a tradition from Sinai direct, or they had experiment. And now, the Aruch HaShulchan, if I'm not mistaken, he says that that's why, it's one of the reasons why we're machmir about it. Because since there's a dispute, and we don't know which one is more accurate finding, therefore, you have to be very, very careful. Chametz is one of the 5 grains, right? Wheat spelled barley, right? Rye, right? Oat, according to most opinions. So if it has contact with water, then it turns into chametz. Now, does it turn? So what?
Turns into.
We paskin that if it has contact, it becomes leavened. There's a fermentation. Yeast means there's a fermentation process where, like by yeast, and it's enzymatic. It's an enzymatic reaction that causes it to transform, and therefore the Torah says.
Rice does transform, right? Like you can't. It's not really edible. In its raw state.
If you take in its natural state the rice, you subject it to water. We paskin, by the way. I mean, there's machlokes Rishonim about this, whether it's water or any type of liquid. Right? Let's say fruit juice. Right? So many Rishonim say that it's only water, and therefore that if it was mixed with fruit juice or anything like that, let's say apple juice or any type of juices, it can't turn into chametz. It's impossible to turn into chametz. Fruit juice cannot make a grain turn into chametz. As a matter of fact, there's even a machlokes.
Is that how they make mazonos rolls? They make it with orange juice or apple juice instead of water?
Yeah. But I'm sure they have to put some water. They have to put water. But they add, Right, but, yeah. But see, chametz, the Zohar says, what's chametz about? Chametz means tashbisu, to rid your house. The Zohar says that chametz is more than that. Chametz, right? Because chametz also represents the Yetzer Hara. Chametz represents arrogance, and chametz represents the fact that you think you know something, you think you know about somebody's events or what's going on in somebody's life, and you really don't know. The Gemara says something very scary, and we don't wish it upon anybody. But the Gemara says something very scary. You know what the Gemara says? The Gemara says that if a person, for example. A person is chosheh b'chsherim. A person suspects somebody falsely. The Gemara says that if he's chosheh b'chsherim, it says chas v'shalom, he's loike begufay. Somebody suspects somebody falsely and thinks something of somebody that's not true, and then chas v'shalom, he's smitten and he's struck in his body. Very, very dangerous. And the Gemara also says, that those that embellish or editorialize or malign somebody and assassinate somebody's character, there's no hope. There's no hope for that person. So you have to be very, very careful. And it's all from chametz. It's all from being conceited. It's all from arrogance. It's all from arrogance. From being conceited. So, somebody suspects somebody falsely, is like a begufay chalila. Very, very dangerous. What? Probably. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Then only with the Jew?
No, I'm saying, but it comes from chametz. It comes because you're supposed to be humble inside. And if you're not humble inside, and you get conceited, and you start rising, right? That's what it's about. It's about the dough rising. What makes the dough rise? It's an enzymatic reaction makes the dough rise. But something takes over your brain, and it's very, very dangerous when something takes over you. And that's why Pesach, Hashem says, no chametz. Chametz represents the humble. No, the matzah. I'm sorry, matzah represents the humble. You got it, very good. Yeah. So, so that's interesting one. What? You said the what?
Aside from Rishonim, right? There's another reason why we don't rice.
Right, so any sack, right? Very good. There are other, that if there's any suspicion that any grains are produced together, right, or grown together, or are packaged together in the sacks with the 5 grains, then we also, we're careful about it. What's interesting is that the Gemara speaks about that a mouse, the saliva of a mouse, or a rat, I guess, whether it could cause chametz as well. And there's one opinion that says that it could cause chametz, but it goes against Mishnah Machshirin, says beferish that the saliva of a mouse doesn't have the din of saliva. Only human saliva has the din of saliva. And the proof of that is that how do you have any grain, how do you have any crop, any field that doesn't have some rodents running around, right? So to think that it wouldn't impair, and we don't want to think about that, right? Eating, you don't want to think about that, right? Okay, but
rice does change, so why isn't rice considered chametz? When you make it does.
There's no leavening process with rice. There's no. It doesn't rise. It doesn't. According to the opinion of Yerushalmi, it does. All right. What? In water.
Rice rises.
What's that?
Only in water it does, not by itself.
Right, in water. But we'll see. But we are machmir though. We hold that matzah shira, you're not allowed to eat. Matzah shira means basically that it's matzah made from they mix, let's say, yolk of eggs in it, or they mix for some kind of fruit juice. So we'll see, Beshem, why we can't eat it. If it can't ever make something into chametz, then why can we never eat it?
I was also wondering, you ever went in the shawarma restaurants where they have these brick ovens and they take a pita on a pillow and they smack it on top of the oven? It's only in the oven for less than 30 seconds or a minute. Why can't we make that
Oh, very good. Okay, so some say, excellent point. Some say that the original matzahs were like the pita breads. And they bring ugas matzahs. What does it mean ugas matzahs? The Torah calls it uga, a cake of matzah. Right? We would never describe our matzah as being uga matzah. It's not cylindrical at all. There's no shape to it. It's flat, right?
You got it one time. You have to keep it in the freezer, then you put it in the oven.
Right. So there's a shiloh whether you're allowed to use these today. Big shiloh, you're allowed to use this today, or do we say that you have to have Masorah? You have to have tradition that if your ancestors, in the immediate generations, never had that, then maybe it's not what.
Brick oven is very old-fashioned.
Brick oven, yeah.
Well, we have a lot of presidents like that, such as the Sitzit, right? The blue, the Sitzit.
The what?
The blue of the Sitzit.
Yeah.
That's the same kind of thing. That even if they know for sure it is, people don't accept it.
Right. It's a good point. Excellent point. Yeah. That's another such.
So there's a lot of those kind of items.
Very
Recently,
much.
there was a light switch that looked like it was totally kosher, but because it looks too much like it isn't, it wasn't accepted by the majority.
That was one reason. There was another reason also that it was considered to be a grumma according to many poskim also. They called it a non-grumma, but Rebelsky held it was a grumma, if I'm not mistaken. And but that was another reason as well. Yeah. Yeah.
But in these Sephardic countries, if they consider rice as chametz, and they didn't eat it, they would
No, smarter countries did not consider rice chametz.
I know they did, but if they did, they would stop because their diets revolved around rice.
Right. So
1 week short of
right. So the price can bring down.
I'm not so sure.
The price can bring down that in
That's their
cases.
whole life was every day.
The price can do bring down locales where it was a staple,
Like Persia.
and they had nothing else to eat. And the showers, could they survive without for 1 week with just vegetables or something else, or fruit and vegetables and eggs, and so Aruch HaShulchan says that when potatoes started coming around, then he said that changed, the dynamic changed, because then you can't no longer say, because I understand, you need something that has some, carbohydrate, right? There's something, right? You need a staple of your diet. It has to be substantive, right? So fruits and vegetables, it's not a staple. It's not, you need a staple. So he says that once potatoes.
So if you're an Ashkenazi, let's say, and you find Pesach in a country that only had rice, and let's say we were part of custom, everybody was eating it, and you couldn't find potatoes or would rice be kosher?
If you have no choice. Shimon and Yosef, you want to come join us? You going? Pesach. Laws of Pesach. Oh wow, amazing. So yeah, Jacob, he'll sit here. Jacob's there. I have the privilege of you sitting next to me. Okay. So.
modern day analogy, oats, those are gluten-free.
Yeah.
When the first destroyed were actually
What's your what?
they need to be prepared in a certain way. To be prepared, it has to be
What happens
grown in areas where there isn't wheat. Otherwise,
Yeah.
What about spelt? Same thing?
Well, some say that oats are not cross. You can't cross. We were talking about whether oats are one of the 5 grains, because in order to make matzah, it has to be made from the 5 grains, which traditionally and typically are translated as wheat. And wheat is the most conventional method of making matzah, and there's different reasons for that. The Aruch HaShulchan says that the reason why you use wheat more than any other type of grain is because he holds it's the most sturdy of the grains, and it's very common, and that it's something that would be least likely of the grains to turn maybe into to be a problem. I think he says, if I'm not mistaken, I think he says wheat. Wheat is the most common, and then of course you have spelt. I've had spelt matzah. So spelt is one of the grains. Yeah, and it's very tasty. They make spelt bread. They make spelt matzah, and they say it's very nutritious. Also, it has good fiber. It is more expensive, yes. And then there's rye. I'm sorry, what?
it's less common.
Yeah, less common. Barley, it's hard to make. Barley is not common, really.
Have you seen rye?
It disintegrates very. What?
Have you seen rye matzah?
I haven't. Have you? Anybody seen rye matzah? What's that? Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. And then oats. So we said that there's some opinions that say though that oat is not one of the 5 grains, and that was mistranslated. And one of the proofs that they try to bring is that if you try to cross-pollinate or make a hybrid of oats with barley, that it doesn't go. And pashto simply, I mean, it would seem that it would have to. If it's the same family, then it should cross. You should be able to cross-pollinate. All right. But it's so for people that need a gluten-free diet. So, and if they would hold that there's a problem, then what do? They need a good solution.
Better stay safe than sorry.
Because celiac, I mean, if they have celiac disease, then they could get sick. What? So what does she do? Oh, matzah. Okay, good. No, Mama, don't worry. Most, everybody. Okay, so yeah. Oh, he also so he eats oats. I don't know what other eights are the. I mean, questions: do you have to get sick? Do you have to, in order to a mitzvah, do you have to get sick? What's the extent of the illness you have to have? Right, the Gemara says that there was a rabbi who couldn't drink wine, and he was sick. He did it anyhow, and he was sick till Shavuos, right? He did it, but usually we say that if a person, certainly if a person could get into danger, a person does not have to perform the mitzvah, right? But Right, if a car, yeah, of course, life and death, a person will never have to do the mitzvah, right? If a person's really though, what? Except for three, right? Excellent, Shimon, very good, right? The big three, you'd have to do, right? Okay, so now, but we said, but so interesting. So we're talking about whether it's a mitzvah to eat matzah the rest of the days of Pesach, or it's only on the nights of Pesach. So is it like Sukkah? Sukkah, there's no mitzvah to sit in the Sukkah. It says Pasukos Teshu Shivas Yom, right? But that only means that if you're going to eat a real meal, something substantive, right? Something of a shear, right? An achilos kva, right? You can have a real set meal, then you have obligation to eat in the sukkah. Or if you're going to sleep, then you have to sleep in the sukkah. Let's say you decide, I'm going on a diet. I'm fasting. I'm not having any real meal. I'm not sleeping. So do you have to be in the sukkah? The first night you do have to. First night. The rest of the sukkahs, you don't. Is it a wonderful thing to do? Yes. Should you want to do it? Of course. You want to chaparine, you want to get as many mitzvahs as possible in the world, right? It's so important to get mitzvahs. Every mitzvah is gold.
So making a mitzvah to stay in the sukkah, but if you have a nice feast, right?
What's that?
Is it a mitzvah after the first night of Sukkot to stay in the sukkah and eat a lot, have a nice meal, feast?
The longer you stay in the sukkah, the more the mitzvah.
Okay.
You do get a mitzvah sitting in the sukkah, yes. But is it obligated? Is it obligatory? That's the question. Is it obligatory? So it's not. It's not obligatory. No. Right. So, but again, is it possible for a person to avoid being in the sukkah on sukkahs? I mean, he's going to sleep at some point, right? You can't go. The Gemara says you can't go 3 days without sleeping. It's impossible.
It might not be
Physiology of the body won't allow it. What?
It might not be considered actual sleep. You're just resting your eyes for a while and that. That's not really sleep.
Well, there are different modes, modalities, and there are different. Let's say, there's different scientifically. There's different experiences and levels of sleep, right? But of course, the REM, the REM. I mean, we spoke once about, let's say, somnambulism, that there are the people that could walk in their sleep and even function and do operations. I mean, when I say operations, I don't mean a surgery. I mean functions and operate. They could do things. Right. But it depends on the level of sleep. Right. So, but if you can't go 3 days without sleep, so therefore, in the times when they were mandated to sleep in a sukkah, when the times are mandated to sleep in a sukkah, today we don't have to sleep in a sukkah according to most Rishonim and most Shittas, because of safety. We live in gullahs and maybe it's not safe, or because of the weather. There are different exemptions and dispensations. Right. So even then also they didn't have to sleep in the sukkah because at nighttime they didn't have to. It was too cold for them, or maybe it wasn't safe, or they didn't have to endanger themselves. However, let's say you have to. Let's say you live in a locale where there's absolutely total safety. The weather is glorious, tropical climate. You have to be in the sukkah then. So you can't go without sleeping. It's impossible to go without sleeping. Then you have a chiyuv to be in the sukkah. Eating, though, you could always avoid it. What? So midoraisa from the Torah, it's 7 days. But we add on a day here. We add on in the diaspora outside of Israel. No. Well, there's an opinion like that, by the way, that says that once the calendar was set, the reason why we add on a day has to do with because it's the calendar. Back then, in order to get the word out to the outlying areas that were not in close vicinity to Yerushalayim, that there was Yontif ordained by the Beit Din, by the court, it took time. So therefore, since it took time, they had to ensure that they were actually keeping the holiday. But once there was a set calendar, Hillel Hazaken, the Hillel the elder, he made a set calendar, and he promulgated this. That there's no question, doubts anymore. But we say minhag avosenu b'yodenu. We perpetuate the custom that we once had. For those that say I saw a shita Rishon, it says like you said that we need the extra day because we don't have the sanctity, the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, we need the extra day.
And if we had the best of Mikdash, would it be all years, so it would be only 7 days?
Right. We'll revert back to only being when Mashiach comes. Yeah, only 7 days, and then of course you have the Shmini Atzeres, which is the 8th day. So some say that matzah is like that you're not forced to eat the matzah. All right? You could go without the matzah, and therefore it's not obligatory the rest of the days. There are some shittas that hold that you should make a bracha on the rest of the days. Every time you eat a matzah, it's a mitzvah. So why should you make a bracha? The same way you make, every time you go into the sukkah, you say Leisha B'sukkah. So why by matzah is it different? Right? There's a whole machlokes. Why should matzah be different? If by sukkah you make a bracha Leisha B'sukkah every time you go into the sukkah, so why by matzah should it be different? Right? That's a whole different discussion, but we'll touch on it hopefully tomorrow.
And every day, like the different holiday sukkahs?
Okay, that's a good point. Right, he's saying that by Sukkot, every single day was considered to be its own entity, its own independent holiday, because every day they brought special sacrifices in the Beis Mikdash, in the Beit Hamikdash, in the temple. They brought special sacrifices. And that's for Pesach, we don't say a full Hallel. Only on Sukkot we say a full Hallel. Only the first 2 days of Pesach we say a full Hallel, but Sukkot we don't say, Pesach we don't say full Hallel. Only on Sukkot we say a full Hallel. What's that? Yeah. Remember, because there are different paragraphs in the Hallel, so we don't say the Hallel in entirety. Only on Sukkot, because every single day was another day for rejoicing, because they brought a special new sacrifice. That's right. Every day is its own, considered to be its own holiday. Okay. Now, he says that B'shar HaRegel, the rest of the holiday, Achilas Matzah Rishus, it's voluntary to eat matzah, right? Ratzah oichel matzah, if you want, you can eat matzah. Ratzah oichel aris, you can eat rice. Now, Ashkenazim do not eat rice. This is a Rambam writing, so that's what he says. You can eat rice, but we have a different custom. And the Aruch HaShulchan writes very strongly. Aruch HaShulchan says that if a person to breach or to violate this ordinance of not eating rice on Pesach, he says, then you are, he says, breaching and abrogating a ordinance of the rabbis, and he says, Yashachenu nachash, the snake will bite you, the venom will get into, he says, don't tamper, don't say, well, I know that rice is not 5 grains, and I could eat rice,
What about if you're in a community that they just eat rice?
So you have to follow
you find yourself, let's say, in Iran or something like that. Where that's what they eat. Are you allowed to eat rice then, or are you supposed to not?
You have to follow your custom. You have to follow your custom. If you have nothing to eat, that's a different story. But otherwise,
It's not really eating chametz. Eating rice.
It's not chametz. No, it's not chametz. Ashkenazic Jews, there was a gzera made.
Huh?
What?
Yes.
Svardim eat rice. Yeah. No.
But they still don't sin though, right? It's not a mavon because we're both Jewish. We both share the same Torah. So.
Right. No, of course, it's the same Torah, but it's a different safeguard because in our communities, in the Eastern European communities, there was a different phenomenon. There was just a little bit different reality as far as the way things were packaged, the way things that were produced, and therefore we had this fear that they didn't have the fear.
How come we can't eat corn?
I mean, let's say you have to understand that
Corn doesn't change.
No. It's not limited to rice. It's any legume, anything that it's called kitnius does not mean rice. Orish means rice. Kitnius means basically legumes. Okay?
So rice is not legumes.
The question is, how far did it extend?
What's legumes?
Legumes means it's a.
Why wouldn't rice or corn be able to eat on Pesach?
Okay, because the fear is that the halacha is that it's going to be confused with wheat or with one of the other 5 grains, and therefore it's a safeguard. For example, why am I not allowed to eat chicken and milk together? It's a safeguard, right? Torah doesn't forbid it. It's a safeguard, right? The rabbis were empowered by Hashem to be his policemen. And to make sure that we don't make mistakes.
You're never going to mix up wheat.
So not everybody holds a string bean to usher. Not everybody holds string bean to usher.
Okra.
What's that?
Better safe than sorry, right?
Better safe than sorry, yeah.
Okra was a staple in some of the stuff.
Right, so let's say quinoa now. Quinoa's a big question, right?
I saw kosher Pesach.
Rebelsky ended up coming out that quinoa would be okay. Because the question is, does quinoa look like a grain? Does it resemble? Quinoa is like one of these superfoods. It's considered to be very, pluripotent with a lot of antioxidants and a lot of amazing things, and also it could be used with a lot of different foods. It's like the new type of staple, or it was supposed to be the new type of staple. So what's the status? The only thing is, it was only discovered recently. It was in South America, but North America didn't know about it. Also, the Middle East didn't know about it really. So now that it came in the new era, does it have the din? Halachically, does it have the din or not?
Well, I see it's OU. It says yes, you can eat it, right? OUP, I see it.
I'm sorry, the what?
You see an OUP.
The OU does give?
Could be powder. Could be powder.
Because I thought that the other posting about.
OUP, not part.
Right. So when the rabbis made the question is, when the rabbis made their ordinance, was it a blanket, statement that would include anything that's ever similar, or the rabbis limited it to those items? That's the question. But don't lose sight of what really chametz and matzah is all about. Chametz and matzah is chametz is the ego and the arrogance. The person's conceited and thinks he knows everything, and judges others. And it's never be one to judge others. It's exceedingly dangerous to judge others. Very, very dangerous.
Right, say at Pesach, and you visit their home, but it's not. They don't serve rice. Can you eat on those plates?
They don't serve rice, he said?
Well, rice doesn't have the chumrah. It doesn't have the exact stringency. For example, let's say rice gets mixed in, right? It doesn't. It's bottle. It's bottle, and it doesn't aser the kalim necessarily. Right. It doesn't have the din of chametz. It's a safeguard.
So you can.
It's Somebody's not feeling well.
Sephardic family invites you to the house to eat on Pesach. They don't serve rice, but those plates were used.
Right. Yeah.
Rice.
Yeah. There's what to rely upon. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe worry. There's what to rely upon. Yeah.
Pardon?
There's what to rely upon. Yeah.
That you could eat.
But as far as
also the Brooks is the same. The Brooks, matzo balls.
That's a whole different discussion. That's a whole different discussion. That came much later. That's much later. But as far as this is concerned, the question is, when they made this ordinance, because they realized that people were confusing grains for rice, and it was a fatal commission, sort of. If you use fatal, because you eat chametz on Pesach, it's very, very dangerous. It says, the Rambam says, in the beginning of chametz and matzah, right? The Rambam says, yeah, that would be a problem, right? It's kares, divine excision. Imagine that, kares. Not too many times does the Torah say kares. But that's a physical manifestation. The spiritual manifestation of it is when a person's conceited, or he does the wrong things, and he's arrogant, and he judges others unfavorably. It says that if you judge somebody unfavorably, and you think you know better, Hashem will smite you in your body. Gemara says it twice. Gemara says in Shabbos, Daf Tzadik Tes. Gemara says in Yuma. A person has to be very, very careful to always be humble, and not to think that he knows everything, and not to judge others and castigate others. And
eating rice.
Nobody. I don't think anybody would judge others for eating rice. That's a cultural thing. It's a cultural divide. I'm talking about hashkafa for life. A hashkafa for life. And chasham to slander somebody. Chasham to embellish, editorialize about people. It says
That's what we do now.
we can't do it. Can't do it.
That's a way of life.
Those that do it are beyond the pale of Yiddishkeit. Those that do it are beyond the pale.
Every day.
That slander people and do those things. It says in the davening, we say every day, "V'la malshinim al tihi sikfa." There's no hope for those that malign others and those that castigate.
He's not a Jew. It doesn't count for him. Yeah, Trump's not a Jew.
Unfortunately, there are Jews that do this. There are Jews that think they know more than others. And they think they know the situation. They think they know the scenario. And they really know very, very, very little. They know very, very little. And they jump the gun. And they say things. And they write things. And they do things. And that's what Pesach is really, so I'm saying if the physical manifestation is Chas Shalom Karis, how much more so do we have to worry about spiritual? We have to worry about these things. We have to tzitter. before we say something, before we write something, we have to sit there, right? And we have to really quiver and shake before you cause somebody, before you write something about somebody, before you do something about somebody, if you say something about somebody, to really be careful not to judge somebody and think you know better than somebody. It's Pesach, the message of Pesach.
If somebody did something bad to you and you judge them because of that, is that so bad?
Well, if somebody did something bad to you, and you know for sure they did something bad, it's not just conjecture. Many Rishonim hold that you're allowed to be upset. Now, I'm not take revenge, but you're allowed to be upset.
What if to warn other people?
There's machlokes Rishonim about that. It's not so pashut.
No. But so like, I heard that it's not lashon hara if you tell somebody, listen, this guy does so and so and so, watch out. It's because you're warning them so they don't get affected. So is that lashon hara?
No, if you know, but you can't be biased at all. You can't be partial. If you know for sure that you're impartial, then you have a chiyuv to go ahead and to.
The guy always steals in business.
You have to tell him. You have to tell him.
Even if he's never going to do business with the guy?
But others will. Oh, you mean the other will never do business?
There's a guy who, when it comes
Remember, we once had a discussion similar to this. Remember about warning somebody. Remember about the driver. Remember that if there's any chance if there's a chance that the person will be affected by this person, and again, there are tanaim. The Chavetz Chaim in his halachas, he explains what the conditions are. There are tanaim, there are conditions. But if you meet all those conditions, you have to warn somebody. It comes up in shidduchim, it comes up in business, it comes up in klal work, in communal work. If you let's say somebody's looking into a school and you know that the Rabbi could damage you have to tip the person off. Again, to destroy the whole person's entire reputation, obviously you have to ask a shiloh. You can't do things without asking a shiloh. You have to be very, very careful because you could really, these WhatsApp groups now. I see what goes on. That like the schools, all these classes, you have it also in your school? You have in your school? The parents have WhatsApp groups?
Oh yeah, my mother's on my little brother's.
So like there's a lot like to talk about the teachers, they talk about the Rabbeim. I don't think it's right. There's no transparency because the school is not on it at all.
Also, the rabbis have to be careful about what they say about the children. I read in the Chavetz Chaim daily lesson, and when you're giving a report about a kid, you have to be careful about what you say.
Excellent. So a mother told me. Listen to what a mother told me. She told me that in her son's class, the Rebbe announces everybody's grades on the tests out loud. And this kid is a star student, but he's sensitive. And he says, isn't it embarrassing to the other kids that don't do so well, that their grades have to be public? Now, I know, even in the secular world, they do this. I mean, maybe they do much worse. I don't know. But what they do is they make kids exchange tests.
Yeah, they do that in the secular world.
And that you grade, what school are you in? Yeah. So, aren't you late for school?
No, I started 10:10. I have time.
Oh, amazing. Okay, great.
I'm senior. I started late. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, right, you exchange tests and you mark each other's tests, right? You grade each other's tests. So, is that fair? I mean, it's
lashon hara if you're willing to give them the test.
Is it okay?
But you don't have a choice, though.
Yeah, the teachers.
It's bureaucratic. Like you're not going to contravene the teacher's dictate. The teacher says, "This is how we're doing it." Yeah.
Is there any because the teachers are doing this in order to build the students. When I started college over here, I was in a class, and the teacher would point out the person who didn't hand in the assignment. The whole class was quiet. Like, okay, I'm missing one assignment. Raise your hand, whoever it is who didn't turn in the assignment. I feel really bad for that person. It wasn't me, but I'm just saying, he's going to single out the one person who forgot to do the assignment.
Okay, good. Okay, so if it's a proven method, let's say, educational psychologist says this is a proven method of bolstering and emboldening the student. For example, the Gemara does sometimes, even Tanoim, the holy rabbis, they sometimes say condescending remarks about each other. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the Chavis Yoyer, who really, he's very surprised, but he's shocked. He says these holy rabbis that they're supposed to have lashon nekiyah, supposed to speak with clean language, and sweetly and nicely about each other. And he says, but this was the method of giving them the tochacha, like healthy rebuke, of building them and showing them that they could be better. Now, Oh, excuse me, 1 second, please. I'm expecting a very 1 second.
Super, super great.
I'm sorry, what?
Only super, super great people can do that.
Right. They have to be on the level. Listen. It's always better to take the more positive approach. It's always better to take the positive approach. But if you know that the person could handle it, and to build a person, they always say that there's two ways to make yourself bigger. Either by demoting someone else, pushing someone else down, or by becoming greater yourself, right? And there's two ways of building a person. There's a way of building a person by chastising the person, berating the person, and saying, "What do you?" There's another way of saying, "You have so much potential, you have so much ability, you have so much opportunity, you have so much a future." Now, a good pedagogue, a real teacher, will know how to discern which the student needs. But they say in our generation, everybody needs the other approach. Just building. They say that Rabbi Dr. Twersky once told this story, the famous psychiatrist, said that when he was a kid, so his father was a prestigious Rabbi, the Hornstopper Rebbe, and he had a visitor from a professor that came to visit, from a professor, and he would play chess. And it was Shabbos, and it was a long Shabbos day, so there was nothing wrong. I mean, halachically, there's nothing wrong with playing chess, but he felt that for his son, who's going to be the future great rabbi, psychiatrist, whatever it was, that. So he after Shabbos, he went over to me. He says, he didn't say you did the wrong thing. He didn't say it was inappropriate. He didn't say scold him or berate him. He said he was doing something on Shabbos that the father felt it wasn't on his level. He shouldn't have done. What did he say? He said pas nisht means like for your level, it's not appropriate. No, I hold of you so highly, right? Again, that's such a key insight, and you're so special, you're huge, you're a prince, And then afterwards, he went to him and he said, with a twinkle in his eye, and he says, "But did you win?" So he gave the musar, but at least he knew how to give it, exactly, and that's why. Look, his kids came out great, His kids came out great, He knew how to be this is really from Chazal. Unfortunately, so many parents today, we lost the Messiah of, loving a child. I see that their children Pasha never got a hug and a kiss from their parents. Kids need the same way a plant. Volby wrote about this. He says that a child is very much like a plant. The same way there are ingredients for a plant. Volby, by the way, was a Baal Tshuva. He grew up. He was a famous Rav in Klal Yisrael. Famous mashgiach in Klal Yisrael, probably one of the most famous mashgiachim in all time, and he wrote Svarim, classic Svarim. He came from a secular family, and in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, and but he says that a child's like a plant, and they're the same way there are ingredients raising a child. A plant is very fragile, it needs a child also needs. But what's interesting is that. To give musar today, it's not easy.
What about secular colleges? Is that a good thing for Jewish people?
So that's an excellent question. And the fact is that a secular college could be very, very dangerous for a Jewish boy and girl. The morality on campuses are almost. Commuter college is different than a dormitory college. Commuter colleges such as Brooklyn and Kingsborough and Hunter and CUNY, all the CUNY schools, all commuter schools, right? They're different than the lifestyle of a dormitory type of school, like Stony Brook or Binghamton. Those actually are probably better than others, because they have.
It was horrible. I heard.
Yeah. But the moral fiber, the moral fabric in any college, unless it's a Jewish college, is very, 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 very low. And not only that, but also the classes, the core curriculum or the electives, sometimes are real kfira, real heresy, and are also immoral. And the teachers can be very, very immoral, come from different backgrounds that are not Torah true one iota. So there's a question, because the Torah says that there are things you're not allowed to see, there are things you're not allowed to harbor in your heart, there are things you're not allowed to subject yourself to. And Shiloh, if you're subjecting yourself, are you allowed to subject yourself to these things, to potential heretical thoughts, potential indecent, and ethical, things, and a person has to be very, very careful to be in a healthy and wholesome environment that's Torah true. That's Torah true.
It's better to go to Israel, no?
There's no question about it.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm having a problem with my mother. I'm telling her, Mom, I want to go to Israel and maybe I want to go to yeshiva for 1 year,
Wow.
And then I want to maybe settle down there, maybe. And she's like, oh, well, you gotta go to Israel. You won't have a life. You'll be nobody. You won't get a job. You won't have anything.
Tell her you want to study abroad.
Yeah.
Tell her you get college credit. Most of the schools, most of the yeshivas get college credit. And study abroad, you get to see they take you on the trips. You get to see the length and breadth of the land, and it's an amazing experience. And 1 year, what's 1 year?
Yeah, I know. I possibly want to move there and actually make a career over there for myself.
Oh, but don't tell her that.
Yeah,
It's 1 year study abroad.
But do you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely. Isaac could help you a lot with that. Isaac, his mother is giving you a very hard time. Wait. So Yosef, you'll speak to Isaac privately because Isaac has a lot of experience with this. He's confronted it and he's, thank God, persevered and been successful. So he'll give you time, I'm sure.
Your parents give you a hard time about that too?
So don't be fearful about it. You're gonna succeed. It's gonna happen, Be'ez Hashem. You have to be strong.
I have Imunan Hashem, that's the main thing. I told her, I have Imunan Hashem, that everything's gonna be okay. And she's secular, so she's like, It's
Right.
hard to reach out and make her understand.
Right. Always have to maintain the respect.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't force it,
No. It doesn't mean you can't do what you want.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like what I want to do is more closer to Hashem. So if
Beautiful.
my parents tell me not to get closer to Hashem, should I listen to them?
Wow. Beautiful. Right, so the Gemara says that if a parent tells you not to keep Shabbos, you're not allowed to listen to them. If a parent tells you not to do a mitzvah, you're not allowed to listen to them. You have to respect it. As long as a parent is not a rasha, is not wicked, you have to respect the parent.
Of course,
Rambam says, well, even if a parent, God forbid, is wicked, there are those that say that some say you're not allowed to hit them or you're not allowed to curse them. No, God forbid, right? Saying, but most parents are not wicked. They just don't know. Right? They have secular mindset. All right, they can't be faulted. But Be'ez Hashem, you'll succeed beyond your wildest dreams, Be'ez Hashem.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You see your neshama is alive.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Tzaddik. So, and especially you're in Chodesh Adar now, so it's very auspicious. And Nisan is coming,
What's that?
because Adar is the Hebrew month now, and it's brought down that, if a person has any judgments, a person needs anything, this is the month to do it. And Nisan is the month of miracles. So, but you have to make your plans now because it's almost Passover, it's Pesach, right?
It's true.
And the year is ending and you're graduating, right?
Yeah, I'm graduating, and then I want to go to Israel.
So, sometimes the way to do it is you go for a little, you say,
How about moving there? Do you think that would be it's not for everybody, but do you think in general is it a good thing to move to Eretz Yisrael?
there's no greater, it's an amazing bracha mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael.
Wow.
The Gemara says that Kol Mi Shador, if you don't live in Eretz Yisrael, it's like you don't have a God. Kol Mi Shador God, yeah.
But
As
it's
it says,
different now
yeah.
'cause there's no Bet HaMikdash.
And it says that every four step, like every Dalet Amos, you take an Eretz Yisrael, it says you get big mitzvah.
You know what I feel? I feel like we're in America, we're in Mitzrayim right now. We get different names. They call me, you know what they call me? They don't call me Yosef. They call me Joe. It's like when you go to, when they would sell the Jews, right, to the Egyptians, they would change their names to Muhammad or whatever, Yahman. And it's Yosef, the king of dreams. You know, everybody knows him, right?
Yeah.
He went to Mitzrayim. I'm not changing my name. Kept his name, never changed it. So it should be the same thing over here. No, we should change their name for nothing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's why I think this is like Mitzrayim.
So you are like the Yosef in Mitzrayim.
I wouldn't say that. I'm nowhere near.
You're keeping the Jewish spark alive.
One day.
In Morrow, in a very, very challenging, hostile environment, right? You're keeping the spark of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism alive.
It's very hard.
You're the hero. You're a real hero.
True tzaddik.
Really?
I wouldn't call myself a tzaddik.
All right, tzaddik is, the Gemara says, listen, think about it. Avraham Avinu, when Abraham, right, when he went to Sodom, he said to God, Sodom was a terrible place, a very decadent place. He said, there's no tzaddik here. So was Avraham Avinu was delusional? He was naive. Or he didn't realize, how could there be a tzaddik in Sodom? He meant, is there anybody here that at least is going against the flow? That is not capitulating, and that one way he says, I'm standing up against this decadence, this immorality. That's a tzaddik. Tzaddik doesn't mean necessarily that you do not everybody's holding by everything and everything. But if you could challenge, right, then that's tzaddik. Tzaddik means righteousness. That's what the word tzaddik means, right? Righteous. If you're righteous in one way, and, Hashem doesn't judge us, categorically, Hashem judges according to our circumstance. Where we're born, our origin, our background, and Hashem says, I'm going to examine you for what, if you could stand up and withhold the temptation in that place, you're tzaddik, huge. I don't shine your shoes. I don't have that challenge at all. How do I come close to you? I don't. Honestly, I don't.
Well, no, what does that mean?
I don't.
What does that mean?
I don't have to withstand this temptation and challenge and that type of environment. That's what it says. Gemara says, "B'makom shabali tshuva oimdin, ein tzadikin gemara oimdin." That where a bal tshuva stands, who fought the temptation and who fought the challenges, the greatest tzaddik can't stand.
But I hope to know one day all the information, all the information.
I hope to have your stamina one day.
Thank you.
And your holiness one day, right? It's amazing. Baruch Hashem. But that's what it says. It says that the vanguard, who will be the ones to greet the Mashiach? Who will be the first ones to have encounter? Bali Tshuva. Yep. Those that went against everything, and those that stood for the truth, no matter all the challenge and the trials. Yep. And it's coming soon. Soon.
We only have 6,000
We believe.
years here. We have 237.
No, only 223 left.
Yeah, 223.
220 left. And the Ben Ish Chai says it's going to be 220, 223.
Yeah, 223 left. And it's already starting.
But it has to be, it's not going to be just 1 year, Mashiach. There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen, right? It's supposed to be centuries. It's supposed to be, so that means we're there.
It already started. The spark started. Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi said that it started maybe 20 years ago with the whole Syria thing. He said that I think the Torah, it says that it's going to start in Syria. It started in Syria. The whole war and stuff like that the whole war is going to start there or something.
Well, but we have a medrash. The medrash says, the Gemara allude to it also, that Eretz Yisrael will Bezhem encompass Egypt, Syria. Don't tell this video, but it's going to encompass all those lands.
We were so close in '67. We had it.
Mashiach?
No.
Yeah,
Egypt.
Egypt.
Syria also.
Syria also. So we retracted. So it means that they're gonna come at us, and we're gonna occupy them again.
Israel was bigger than now, right? Back in ancient times, right?
Yeah, much sure.
It was bigger.
Yeah. All right. So unfortunately, learning never ends. But for now, we have to. But learning never ends.
But
That's
not
why.
the best part.
Huh?
Never ends. That's the best part. Never ends. So
But that's why you don't have to make. If you learn later today, God willing, Bezhem, if you just open up any book or go online and read a Mishnah or something or Chumash, so you don't have to make another bracha of brachas Torah, because all day long the Taz says, the holy Taz, Rav David, he says that you make a bracha la'asok. That's what Ashkenazim say, la'asok b'Torah. La'asok b'Torah is because Torah is a business. All day long you're dealing in Torah. Even if you're not learning Torah, 100%. You're a Torah Jew. You have to be a Torah ambassador. You have to represent Torah in whatever you do. Even if you're not learning Torah, you're dealing in Torah. And that's why you don't have to make another bracha. Because you're going wherever you're going. You were a yarmulke in school?
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. You're very brave.